Hello and welcome to Dr. Akmal Makhdum's YouTube channel, and today we're going to be talking about coronavirus and the role of the media. Um, we've mentioned the media before in the previous videos, very briefly, but what do you think the role of the media should be as we stand right now?
Okay, that's a very wide question.
Yes.
I think what we should look at is the general principles. So, what should be the role, and what is the role? So basically, the main role is information, and then there is the role of entertainment. Um, Moral education and so on depends on from society to society. In a democratic society, in a democratic setup like England, I think the primary role is information and the ability to discuss and dissect. So, in the corona scenario, what should be the role is that the the official state media, although BBC is state media, but of course retains a great deal of integrity and independence. And then there are the private channels and so on. So the emphasis, of course, of the state media funded by the public is not financial. If the purpose is not financial, it is for them to bring out all the information, all the pros and the cons, all the yay, ayes and the nays, and then bring each aye and a nay to be dissected. So, for example, this recent article by Lester Campbell on the 20 questions which need to be asked of the government. The Labour's insistence that somehow the Parliament should be, brought together for this whole discussion. And so it is important for the media to be able to dissect all that. Then there is the role to dissect what is going to what is happening with the research on COVID-19, on the effects of COVID-19, because figures are okay. The media is giving this figure of so many hundreds passed away sadly, or so many died on that day or this day. These are just figures at this particular moment in time. One figure isn't different from the other figure except giving the trajectory. It has no real relevance to the individual. So when I am watching the television, a figure of 798 to 931 doesn't really have an impact on me, except it may scare me a little more. If the purpose is to scare me, yes, they're succeeding. But if the purpose is to inform me, what is going on and how I should behave, how my family should behave, what kind of interaction should I, which they are doing. So I would say that there is a degree of good media behavior in the United Kingdom or Great Britain, where state media is doing an excellent job. In terms of the private media, they're also doing a good job, but obviously they have to sort of have a degree of controversy to attract viewership, and that is also good as long as it is done within limits.
Okay.
Now, if we talk of in terms of our own relevance to the British Pakistani, for diaspora, the Pakistani media, or the media channels that the British Pakistani see in England, I see again 2 degrees, rather 2.5. One is the state media, the PTV, that gives you a straight informational description and sometimes discussion, but I think that there is a great deal of unnecessary quasi entertainment happening at this moment in time. I do not think that they've grasped the severity of it.
You're talking about the state media.
I'm talking of the Pakistani state media,
Okay.
the Pakistan television. My feeling is they're doing an excellent job, but they need to have a culture shift. The culture shift is that there needs to be more focus on the socioeconomic aspect, the socio-cultural aspect of COVID, how it will transform society, how it should transform society. The time for having those melodramatic plays, taking over hundreds of hours a month isn't now.
Okay.
And the same old documentaries about this, that, and the other in this place, I don't think that is relevant at this moment. Because when somebody is thinking about how am I going to get food, how am I going to go out, will I come back and afflict all my family members with a deadly virus, at that time, talking about the hill station in some remote village in somewhere isn't topical. So what I would say is that there needs to be a change in gear, change in mentality, and that needs to happen.
Okay.
The private media, and of course the private media is the major responsible, or let's say major private channels, and then the tabloid channels. The major channels have that model, that formula, simple hero, heroine, villain formula. So what you have is three antagonistic, vocal antagonists are brought in together. They shout at each other. They say the same thing again and again.
They're all
and
talking
again.
over each other. I
They're
don't know how anyone makes
all
sense
talking
of it.
over each other. Even if they're not talking over each other, they're saying the same thing again and again. And you know that this person is going to be fully in favor, that person is going to be totally opposed, and this person is going to be opposing both.
So they're still doing that.
And this is what the formula is, and this is what is happening today. So I would say, and there is no real informed discussion.
Okay.
Informed discussion on facts, figures, research, and so on. So I would say that is where there needs to be a transformation.
Okay, so now let's talk about what's happening in UK, because we saw, I saw on TV a few days ago, there was some discussion happening on how the media within the UK, they're highlighting overzealous police or people, hundreds of people flouting the lockdown rules. The argument was that now is the time to show unity. Now is not, because majority of people are abiding by the rules. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's right, or do you think that's also just a form of then kind of censorship in a way? Isn't it the role of the media to, even if it's one person kind of abusing their power or breaking the rules, it needs to be highlighted?
Well, there are two things here. If you have dozens or hundreds of people flouting rules and police are trying to be effective in trying to manage them, you should look at the risk. 10 people have it, they can afflict maybe 10,000. There was this particular case in Pakistan where one person was responsible for afflicting 44 others. So the idea that this is more to do with my civil liberty, that I should be able to go and spread a virus that'll kill a few people, that's not part of my civil liberty. At this moment in time, there are extraordinary circumstances, and people do not know how to approach every situation with uniformity. The approach in Suffolk for Suffolk police is entirely different. I found it extremely sensible, very respectful, and very informative and very friendly. There is presence, but it's a kind of beware presence. In certain places where they have found, or historically they have found in a particular community or particular locality, a friction with the police, sometimes police can be more vigorous. Yes, it must be shown, but in the context that one person can afflict dozens and dozens of people, and out of those dozens, many will die. So in that context, it should be understood. If somebody, because of their nastiness or because of their personal issues, or they didn't wake up in a good mood, and they have the authority and they abuse that power, then of course that's an individual case.
Okay.
It cannot be generalized, but it must be highlighted, but in the context of reality and facts.
Okay, and also I just want to say that we did make this video before, but then the sound didn't work. And you made a very good point of this reporting that's happening at the moment, that today 700 people died. Then today, I'm doing
900.
900. So this kind of reporting, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, as I said earlier, that on one day you have 750 dying, and the next day 850, and the next day 950. What does that give me? It just scares me. It does not really give me anything else. And how is it relevant to me, except that, more people are dying, so I could be one of them. If that is the idea, fine. Maybe that is what should be conveyed, but it should be conveyed in a contextualized manner. Just that sensational, news. And I was comparing the British news and British numbers with Pakistani numbers today. 6 people in Lahore died today. 5,000 people, the limit has, the infected people have crossed 5,000 in Pakistan. It's really become dangerous. And on the other hand, over 10,000 have died in the US. Almost 10,000 or 11,000 in UK. And 1,000 people are dying every day. So the idea is that if you just switch numbers and swap numbers, the same sensation is created for 6. And the same one is for 1,000. And whereas less sensation is created for 1,000 and more sensation is created on the 6. So that is why I would suggest that both the media communities need to look at the context, that how relevant is this information for you or I?
Or how to make it relevant.
Or how to make it relevant. How should I, as I always say, that statistics don't really have any relevance to me, that 70% have this. But what about the other 30%? And what about the exclusion criteria or the inclusion criteria? So that's why these things aren't relevant. But you need to make them relevant. And how it is relevant is that if you were, 1 in so much chance, so it means that if you've gone out 20 times outside, on one occasion at least you will bring your virus back or be affected by it out of so many visits. So I think you need to translate that into a relevant piece of information which affects me.
Yeah, I also think, if it's the same format for all the, media, then journalists are, let's find out how many people died today. That's our headline for today. And the headlines aren't really changing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've actually got a few minutes left. What would you like to see happen with the media going forward now?
I would say that the media need to...
You've already said that throughout your points, but let's
summarize
I
would summarize it. Let me split it again. For the British Pakistani media, my request would be, for goodness sake, stop using the same addictive substance that you've used for the last 10 years, which is getting 3 antagonists together, get them bang each other's heads, and then just laugh and stir one against the other and so on. That actually is extremely unhealthy, has been unhealthy. It has decimated culture, and what we need to do is we need to deal with it, transform it. The British media, I would suggest that instead of just figures, make this a far more informative, far more discussive, less political as a discussion. Because what happens is that after every news item, the journalists have of course, a brotherhood or sisterhood. They will only invite a journalist for comment. And I think we need to change that and get more and more experts at every sitting of media exposure.
Absolutely, and it's interesting to see how certain countries are playing on the political aspect of it all, and then within the UK it hasn't really become politicized just yet. But anyway, we're running out of time. Do write to us if you have any questions. Subscribe if you like the page, and leave any comments if to let us know what you think. Thank you so much.
Thank you.